Dr. Garo, Dad. We're back for episode 3 of the Garo Cigars podcast.
Yep.
We have gone through a lot in the last 2 episodes. I think this time around, I wanted to talk about the climb. Basically, you starting the cigar brand and it starting as a boutique and then building your brand within the industry. So when you first launched Garo Cigars, what was the intended goal of the company? Like, what did you want to accomplish?
Well, when I started the company, it was by default, by the way. I didn't know there was a cigar fad going on because my passion to the cigar culture was very, you guys have seen it growing up. The way I used to care for my cigars, buy cigars. And when I was in Dominican Republic, an opportunity came along. And after thinking, I said, let me do one thing and try to manufacture with my name a cigar. Actually, it wasn't my name. Uh, I didn't decide that. We had a marketing lady and we had a designer. So they came up with the name Garo Habano because it rhymes better. And once they gave me that name, I was working with the manufacturing. And the first plant with which I did, it was given to me by Sergio Cuevas, the mild cigars. So knowing what it enticed in the blend, but I had nothing to do with that at my first blend because I had to wet my feet, I had to learn, but I had to go through a process because whatever they said, I agreed, I smoked, and then I put the label on. And that's how the first initial blend started, which from there on, it started more, my curiosity grew, and I started learning more about the tobacco, the regions, uh, whatever I knew, I added on. And this way, it's kind of now the blending process, the way it's done, which was the Seco, which was the Aero, which was the Viso, which was every type of tobacco that there was in, and, the Pennsylvania broadleaf and so forth and so forth. So this is like, and that's one of the reason every time I go, every month I go to Dominican, there's something new on there.
So, talk me through that first batch. What was that first batch of Garo Cigars like? How did you come up with the blend or decide on a particular, how did you decide what that first batch was going to be?
Well, I decided I wanted something that, even though I had a jade taste, uh, because I used to smoke heavier cigars, and the first blend was the other extreme, mild cigars. I wanted to kind of cater to the novice cigar smokers. I was trying to achieve my goal was that to be able to people to get into the cigar passion the way I was and I am, and so that they would start smoking the mild one to get their palate opened up. Because if you give them a strong medium cigar, it's going to backfire on them. But with the mild cigars, it will be their entry to the cigar culture.
And that first batch, that's the Garo Blue that you started with, the Connecticut wrapper,
Yes.
mild blend, and you're traditionally at least your palate is more on the full-bodied side. So you made quite a shift to put your first blend or your first batch being mild, right?
Yes, but I couldn't be like, selfish that I would do something I'm going to smoke only I'm going to smoke. Yes, I smoke the mild cigars too. See, for me, I would smoke any uh, strength cigars because for me, it's the enjoyment of smoking. And that's one of the things I like now for the last 2, 3 years. I was trying to teach people or tell them the enjoyment of the cigar rather than puffing a cigar.
And in those early days, the Garo Blue was the first one that you made. And then I think the second blend was another Garo Maduro. So you did get your full body eventually within that first couple years of the brand starting. Is that right?
Yes, and the second one was the Garo Maduro that we did was Brazilian wrapper in 1996, and everybody thought I was crazy. I was using Brazilian wrapper for the Maduro.
And that wasn't a common thing at the
It
time?
wasn't common thing because, like, then everybody, a couple of years later, everybody started using it.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
you're kind of setting the trend on that Maduro.
Well, I mean, I liked it because I like to chew on the tobacco to see the flavor. Because remember, what I learned right now, what I was doing then, I was doing it by default. Now I know today why I'm doing it. Because, like, over the years, I learned to master blenders, which they allowed me to partake with them to do the blending. And talking about the tobacco, it kind of gave me the insight how to do the blending. And like at that time when I had the blend and I had to find a wrapper for the Maduro, I had to chew the tobacco to see what's the taste of the wrapper was. Was it going to be complementing the filler?
So what would you say some of the biggest challenges were that you'd faced, uh, even in just those early days of starting the cigar brand?
The consistency of the tobacco, the, I mean, the availability of the tobacco was there, but I was fortunate enough that, with the blue line, I had the consistency, but with the Maduro and the Verde that I had later on, there was the inconsistency, uh, because my time didn't allow to go and inspect. I relied on the manufacturers, and that's where I start stumbling on some problem, the inconsistency. So then I decided after that I'll be there after finishing the medical school that I would go more often, even though going more often since I didn't have no I was a client. I wasn't being able to go around and, yeah, I used to talk to them to learn, see them, but during the manufacturing, there was nobody per se to look at them or when they finish the cigars in the humidor, per se, go and, take some of the cigars out of that bunch and smoke it if there's a consistency there.
So in those early days, when you're putting those first few blends together, Garo Habano is just starting off, you're working with certain factories and you're putting the blends together with them, but these are bigger factories that you're not the only cigar being made in their factory, right? There's they're blending and manufacturing cigars. Some of the owners even have their own labels that take priority.
I mean, that's what every factory in Dominican Republic is. But depending on your relationship, I always had a good relationship. But when it comes to the manufacturing part, yes, their own blend took precedent. Uh, I mean, unfortunately, because it's their factory, you're their client, even though they will tell you that on a large scale that, you can tell them you have a factory. I mean, we knew that it wasn't our factory and you couldn't lie to them, I have a factory. So we had those issues because every time we had to come up with the blend, we had to kind of go over it. And every time new bunch came or new orders were we received, we had to open and smoke the cigars and see like the consistency was there. Nowadays, I do it over there.
So your first set of quality control was when you got the final product here in the States, right? You didn't have access to the cigars the way you do now, where you can check the consistency of the cigar before it even goes into the box.
Yes, fortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at that time, I couldn't.
So what were some of the struggles of dealing, when we say consistency, just so people understand, we're talking about the consistency of the blend and the tobacco being put into it, right? The
Yes,
consistency of that also means the quality of the tobacco as well as the color of the tobacco,
yes, the
uh,
wrapper.
the wrapper, the binder, the filler. I mean, any aspect of it that is not the same as the batch before or close to, because as we talked about in last episode, there is going to be these changes that's going to naturally happen with these tobaccos, and you kind of have to tweak the
The
blends to
blend.
make sure you keep that, again, that consistent, profile, right, that you wanted to
Well,
accomplish.
we do it more often right now than they used to do in the past because there was a blend, they went with the same formula, but nobody took into consideration. That's where the problem started with the Garo Habano.
Right.
I mean, working with some people for 10, 15 years and still they didn't get it because for them was making a cigar, putting the label. But if anything happened, I took full responsibility because my name is on it.
Right. Right. So you were basically another customer for them. I mean, they were fulfilling your order because you were one of, a handful of boutiques they were just making.
Well, I never, lost the sight that I was their customer, even though they were showering me to tell everybody that I have a factory. Like their factory is like my factory. I mean, I knew that, but see, when I couldn't, uh, you know, cruise around the factory or do the blending, get involved with it, I was like, but at this, I was the customer.
Right.
But at least, I had the chance to chat with the master blenders, see things and do things with them so that I would enrich myself with knowledge so that I would be able to do it one day on my own.
So, can you talk about a little bit what those consistency issues, what impact that had on Garo Habano in those early days? I mean, what were some of the things you had to deal with in terms of retailers or distributors or anything like that?
Well, they were some like, I mean, I can tell the hair that broke the camel's back was distributed in Germany, received the 10th anniversary cigars. About a couple of hundred boxes. And when they smoked it, it was like not the blend that they signed up for. And I lost a customer. And I had another experience with a friend of mine. We were doing a New York tour and we had all the cigars. And every time we went to the first store that we went, we were happily giving the cigars, and suddenly the people they came, it's plugged, it's not drawing, it's not lighting. Like we had to start trying to find cigars from the box. We felt so small that time, and that was the time it took 12, 13 years with the same factory. We kind of felt small. And it happened again within the second store. It happened to the third store. But since the cigar had my name on it, I took full responsibility. And then I was thinking of, I went back to the manufacturer with my friend was in the cigar industry at the same time. And we told him about the issue. And for 1 year, we tried. 1 year. Even I had the accent at that time too. We tried to do it, but no, I think he had different ideas because he was leaving the premium cigar manufacturing. So I was,
This is the manufacturer you're saying they didn't really have interest in
yeah.
figuring out.
So then luckily I was friends with Milton for 15 years at that time too. So kind of, I took them everything to Milton's factory where I had more hands-on involvement. And that's why when they branded the cigar, we called it New Home, New Blend.
So you've talked about this in other podcasts where you were involved in a car accident, and at the time you had to slow things down in terms of your travels. Things slowed down a little bit with your involvement with the blends and the manufacturing aspect of it. You hadn't. This is right before the rebrand, so that we're talking about 11 years ago now, approximately. About 12 years ago, 2013.
Yes.
2013, around that time. Well, 2013, I think, is when we did the official rebrand, but
Yeah.
around 2010 is when the accident happened. And our international presence was low. Our presence was a little bit lower. We were still under the Garo Habano name. And this is around that time you're saying that a lot of the consistency issues that were coming, the straw that broke the camel's back, like you said, it was kind of the last straw of things weren't even being rolled properly in certain factories, right?
Yeah, even though I had the accent and I still made my travel every month with that, with my, uh, shoulder. straps to my chest to make like to take like the steps to improve it so that we will find a solution. After a year, I saw that it was everything wasn't going the way I wanted to do it. I had to make a drastic change, and to do the drastic change, I had remembered what you said one day that would you like to rebrand? And I said yes, since we're not doing anything right now, it's the right time of doing it. So we wanted to simplify. And I remember what one day you said about the Apple logo being simplified. So that's what I took my old picture, 1995 picture, and I always wanted to have the silhouette. So I kind of put it in the middle of a label. And then since I love the fleur de lis because it represents royalty, I always was fascinated with the French culture having that fleur de lis. So kind of we created the simplicity of the band. And that's why we have the same band with different colors.
So this was about a 2-year, 3-year process where we decided we wanted to do the rebrand. At the same time, you're transitioning to now being by having all of your blends be made in one factory, right? Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned Milton. Can you mention who Milton is and where we're making Garo cigars now?
Milton is the my associate at the Tabaca Cinco Estrellas in Tamboril. Milton was one of the people that every time that I used to blend with another manufacturer, with the other factory, we used to get the blend and I smoke with Milton just to get his opinion. And not a single day he told me that, would you like to do cigars with me? I have the factory. But when I kind of going to this situation, I called him and I said, Milton, this is the problem. He goes, my doors are open. So, and he gave me the red carpet treatment. So we took all the blends there, and it took us a year and a half or 2 years because now our blends, they had box of 25s. And what happened is, since we were rebranding it and there was a bad taste in the consumer palate because of the Garo Habano, I had to change the packaging. So that's why you would see some odd numbers in my packaging, like Edición Limitada 27, Maduro Especial 27, Adamas 64, 21. Uh, then we had the 20 count of 20s, and we have count of 18s, just to make it different so that people they would see. And kind of we succeeded because I was there from the day that we decided to rebrand it and took off. I was in DR every month for 5 days. And for me, that's a pride that I took because now the consistency is there because I was controlling it. I can control as much as my time allows because again, I still have my clinic.
Yeah, yeah. We can't forget that you still had patients in the States that were waiting for you
Eh,
every time you came back. I mean, what was the biggest impact? Well, let's recap that. You're now working with Milton at his factory, and now all the blends are under one roof with you have direct access to your blends. Can you talk a little bit about what the major change was now that everything was under one roof and you were no longer in borrowed space in someone else's factory? I mean, you're in your more or less your own factory in the sense that the primary focus is Garo Cigars there.
for me, it's like I had the freedom to go and pick up the tobacco, check the tobacco, and the freedom that I had that I go down to the humidor and pick up the cigars from the bunches made and smoke them without asking anybody to bring me. So this way, I have my site when they do the packaging. And like, I take pictures the way I want things to be done. Uh, but they're executed the way I wanted to do it. And I feel free there because, the tobacco that I want, or we want to do a blend. We try to talk with Milton. We put our heads together and we try to couple of things, couple of wrappers, and then until we reach the final blend. It gives me more freedom to do things on my own, even though I'm collaborating with Milton. But Milton lets me take the lead sometimes to see where I'm heading.
Right.
And if I go the wrong direction, he pulls me back. So this way, it's a learning process.
And
Every time.
it sounds like it's a pretty collaborative partnership too of putting the blends together. Because even before you were working with him officially, you would take the blends that you made somewhere else, and he'd kind of be your uh, test, so to
Yes.
speak, right? He wasn't just a yes man. I mean, he would tell you if he didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
He would tell you that, oh, you need to add a little bit more of this or that, or he was somebody to kind of test the blends with, and then end up naturally basically evolving into this partnership since he had his own factory, and now you have direct access and control. I mean, with now that direct access and control of having an eye on the product and being able to develop these consistent blends and maintain the blends, because that's what we talked about last episode about maintaining the blend of what changes in the tobacco. I mean, what impact did you see on the flip side with the retailers when you came back now with, we'll talk about the rebrand again in a second, but what impact did that have on your direct relationship with now the retailers?
Well, they start saying, "Oh, it got better." The blends were there, but unfortunately, they weren't blending it right. So this way, it lost its thing. But we used the same blend and the different name, and we brought it back, which was done properly. Now they're smoking the real McCoy.
Right. I mean, we used to talk about this a lot about, we're a smaller company. We don't have boots on the ground or salesmen going into these retail shops every month or every quarter or anything like that. Our relationship with our retailers were maintained by the products they received from us, right? And they might get the first batch, which is great, but then the second batch wasn't great, with the old factories. But now they know they're seeing a bit more consistency back to back with their reorders. And if there is an issue, we're able to address it right away because we're not dealing with defective products that were coming in. We were able to catch it at the source at the factory before it's even put in a box, right?
Well, you try to catch that. Unfortunately, it's their handmade. During the day, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your hands get tired. In the 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock, sourcing the color, sometimes your sight get tired. So what happened is you get 2-3% sometimes, uh, in not inconsistent, but loose or tight. But my motto was from day one that if they get a one bad cigar, all they have to do is ship it to me, and I would send them 2 cigars because I don't want them to lose their profit.
Right.
So, I mean, I stood behind my blend all the time. And with this Milton's factory, I'm proud to say that every time when new, let's say the blue, we're going to do it, new tobacco came in, we have to make that cigar. Uh, uh, Milton will take upon himself, and he knows the blend, and he kind of configures again the ratio of the tobacco so that it would be close to 95-96% of the original blend.
Yeah, and that's another thing that was different too, is that, I mean, his commitment to the blend as well, as opposed to, again, being in kind of a borrowed space in someone else's factory who may not be as familiar with your blend. Like you were saying, that Germany account that was
Yeah.
lost because the blend was completely different, because you didn't have eyes on it, the consistency wasn't there. However, whatever blend they ended up shipping out, we don't even know. But
No,
at least
unfortunately.
now you have a little bit more consistency with someone who's familiar with not only having more or less not a similar palate, but at least understands what you're trying to achieve, and it's closer to the mark than, you know, again, someone who's not as invested in your brand the way, Milton is also kind of in support of it.
Well, Milton always appreciated the passion that I had
Yeah.
because he's a passionate too. So he understood where I was coming. He respected me who what I was standing for. So therefore, he was always pushing me. Whenever we didn't have a lot of sales too, he goes, "Don't worry, it's gonna go timed. Just don't give up." And then I never gave up because it's something. It's passion. You cannot put a price or things on the passion. It's like it's part of you.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be a natural part of what you want to accomplish in your brand too. If it comes naturally, you're not forcing it, and things eventually kind of fall into place if you're naturally committed to it rather than forcing it. And
Exactly.
that's, I think all of us can, even having you as a father watching you throughout the entire process, I think a lot of us have a bit of that in us of seeing if you focus on your passion, things will fall into place because you're not forcing it. It's,
Passion, determination, persistency, and determination
yeah,
and consistency. That's what it
yeah.
is.
I want to backtrack a little bit about the rebrand because that was at least when I started getting involved with you. This is now 2010. I was finishing my first year of law school. You were sending me like contracts and stuff to read here and there, like should I sign this, review this real quick. So I feel like I naturally became, in-house counsel for Garo Habano, like by default. And then eventually that kind of evolved into, hey, Dad, let me help you with the social media stuff. Let me help you with this. And eventually, we had talked about, because you had the silhouette logo before in other places, but it wasn't the kind of hero logo for the brand. You had about 9 blends before the rebrand, and they all had their own bands, they all had their own colors, and they all had their own boxes and their own identity. And that makes a little bit more sense now when we were talking about the blends last episode of how you kind of in the zone with each one, and you wanted to create a different experience for each one.
That's why I tell people, and each cigar has its own story. And I learned that the cigar should have a story. 20 years ago, and people when they ask me about the blend, uh, again I'm very adamant. I tell them, "Do you ask any Cuban cigars blend?" They don't. But I would tell them, why don't instead of asking the blend, ask me the story. And I kind of forced on them the story of each blend. That's why they're named. And that's what I like to do. That's why each one of them has a different look or different blend. And that's why when people they come and ask me which one should I smoke, I would ask them, what's your taste bud? Because I can match your taste bud with one of my cigars. Because I can't give somebody who smokes strong cigars, give them a blue one, or somebody who smokes mild cigars, give them a medium bodied cigars. It's going to throw them off. Now, since we don't know the lingo of that, how to say it, that it's not to my palate, what do we say? It's a bad cigar. They blame the cigar instead of blaming them, themselves, not knowing their palate.
Yeah, that's a big part of, you know, that's a big part of the cigar process of kind of understanding, because it's the same with wine. People will like a certain type of wine or might say something's good or something's bad, but their palate is a big part of it too, of, what they're going to prefer. But, that was one of the hard things in those early days of the rebrand, because I knew how important it was for you to have a different identity for the cigars, because that was the story that went along with it. And at least my pitch to you at the time was keeping having one consistent label across the board. And, you know, I always felt that was going to take the story away, but we still kind of maintained at least the unique names for each cigar, and then the stories behind each blend.
Well, yeah, the
stick.
story was always gonna be there.
Right.
It always
Right.
there. Like uh, I'm working on a couple of blends right now that has a real identity and has a real story behind it, which it's at the end of the year or next year. But always I came up with a story behind any line that I make because it's fascinating and interesting because once you know the story, it's like a kid when you tell them a story, they will remember.
Right.
So when you tell stories, they're not going to remember. I mean, like, I got this idea because when I was going to high school, we had a music teacher, and every Friday night we had a musical society gathering. For 3 hours, we used to listen to classical music. But at the same time, what he did, even though we didn't know he was the master, he was teaching us. While the music was playing, he was telling us the story behind the music. So kind of that's what attracted me to classical music or opera because he made me think of the story and made me love the music. So that was kind of thing. That's what I decided, like, 20 years ago to start doing that because that really resonated with people listening to the story. And that's why every time there is a blend, it has a story. Otherwise, there's no blend.
Yeah, and that was the important thing of preserving that element that you wanted with each blend. But, once I started kind of poking my head into the business a little bit more with you, I I had told you that, you mentioned it. I read Steve Jobs' autobiography and then his kind of jump in the corporate world and the technologies and simplifying things so it's easier for the consumer to enjoy. And that's kind of that idea came of making the hero logo the silhouette of you rather than the bands of each cigar, because the story would still be preserved because of the identity of us. So that's one of the main, at least the main focuses that I always wanted with Garo Cigars, at least for you, of making it easier for a consumer to remember what the brand was by having a common thread of the silhouette, and then we would just have different colors on the bands, because ultimately a lot of people that are smoking, we do make cigars for the experienced smoker, but for the novice smoker who might not know, they're definitely going to remember that silhouette and they're going to remember what color they liked. And then just by understanding and knowing the story behind the blend, it was going to be easier not only for us to have the blend and brand grow, but also for the retailer to be able to put something up that is going to be recognizable. And, the idea was for it to fly off the humidor shelves, right?
Yeah,
And that's
that
that,
that's
that,
the whole
that
idea.
that's the whole idea. So the rebrand with the new logo, new boxes, new box numbers and sizes is directly linked to the timing of partnering with Milton. So we were kind of full steam ahead starting 2013, 2014, when we had at that time we launched a new website. We focused on, new blends, new home, same Garo,
Yeah.
And so that was, and a big part of it at that time too was focusing on getting those blends, keeping the consistency right, and ultimately making it easier for our retail partners to be able to push our products, because this product spoke for itself. I mean, we never really adhered to any gimmicky things. We didn't do the fads. We talked about that in the last episode of, not doing stuff that was trendy. You kind of committed to certain blends and wanted to maintain those blends.
Yes.
And so, you know, in this new era and this new rebrand period, I mean, what have been some of the uh, things that you think have stood out the most since you've done the rebrand? And the logo is essentially a silhouette of you. I mean, it's the
Well,
first
again,
picture we took of you in '95, and we made it the logo.
well, it's the simplicity. I mean, if people they start coming and talking with me to know about the brand, they will know that I will talk about the tobacco in general. As I say, tell everyone that if I can't smoke it, I can't talk about it. So I will smoke all my blends, depending on the day of the time. from the mild to the heaviest one. But again, it takes certain, like the time, when you want, in the afternoon, in the evening, in the morning, depending. But once they talk to me, they will know the story behind it. That's my goal, been trying to do it, and I'm getting more and more people listening for the last 17 years. I would say 13 years. That, people, or 12 years, they're listening more and more the story, the blend. All they have to do is, even at the shows, I would tell them, all you have to do is try it. Because when they come and tell me, oh, we haven't heard from you, and I go back to the RTDA, I go to IPCPR, and I go PCA. So, like 3 decades being in the industry, at least you should have seen me once. I was always there.
Yeah, it always surprised me when someone says, "Oh, we've never heard of you." It's like, well, we've been in this spot for 30 years. You've definitely walked past us, or you've heard of the brand.
And it surprises me when those people, they come and they tell you, what's new, what new do you have? And I will tell them, since you haven't heard about me,
It's all new.
it's all new for you.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
Yeah.
So I mean, some people, they will take it, they laugh. You're right. Some people, they get offended, they walk away,
Yeah.
like insulted their intelligence. But you asked the question. I'm answering
Yeah.
answering your question.
I mean, my last question to you, I mean, you kind of answered it in this last one. I mean, what do you think sets Garo Cigars apart from all the other brands out there? I mean,
The uniqueness that we have, and the soul that we put in the manufacturing of a cigar. That's the main thing in my, and the pride and the passion we have, we put it all in the cigars. We have never discounted. We never. I rather give the cigar for freaking free cigars than discount the cigars,
uh,
because you won't have a chance to tell me that I bought it discounted.
oh, right. I mean, and there's never really any shortcuts that we take. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed with how much time you take on making sure a blend is right. I mean, even now, I mean, you'll come with a pack of 5 and you'll smoke one every 2 weeks, one cigar, just to see how the evolution of that blend is before
Exactly.
you finalize that's probably one of the secret blends you were talking about a second ago.
Uh huh.
I will find out.
Uh huh.
Well, Dad, thanks for sitting with me again for this episode. This has been so much fun. So on the next one, I think I do want to talk a little bit more about the 30 years in the industry and how you think a lot of things in the industry have changed. So, get ready for that one. That's going to be a fun one.
Sure. I'm looking forward.